Hey guys, this was a really cool one. This is a Q&A for the Apprentice film with Golden Globe winner Sebastian Stan, Jeremy Strong, writer Gabriel Sherman. I know this film did not do well at the box office. Regardless of what side you were politically, it was well done and very interesting. The acting was terrific. Even Ron Howard himself did an intro for the film because he liked it so much. This was filmed before the award shows and before Sebastian Stan won his Best Actor Golden Globe. He didn't win for The Apprentice, but he did win for A Different Man. You'll hear what Trump thought about the film and why it was historically significant. How Jeremy Strong and Sebastian Stan were able to handle the material despite having different political opinions than the characters they portrayed. And the strange scene that Jeremy Strong really wanted in the film but didn't make the cut. So I hope you enjoy it and let me know what you think.
It's I had nothing to do with this movie. I turned out to be a fan, and it was one of those movies where I think a little bit like is going to be the pattern with the film. People were sort of talking about it around Imagine. It was just, hey, have you seen it? Have you seen Apprentice? Do anything? It's good. Everybody, Jeff Brody, it's good. Finally, I caught up with it. Really, really enjoyed it, which is why I'm here. I think you're going to enjoy it as well. And of course I've known Jeremy Strong for a long time. He went to school with Bryce and my son-in-law Seth, and I followed Sebastian for a long time and admired his work and recently met him. But then at the end of the credits, I saw one of the exec producers is Amy Baer. Well, I've known Amy. I've known her a long time. I've known Amy since she was that tall, because she is Tom Bosley's daughter. So I had a moment of pride that she had been a part of this project, and I've known Amy, of course, over the years as a very successful producer, and called her, and she said, yeah, her company, and she developed the project initially, and in talking to Sebastian and her, began to realize what a labor of love project this has been, and what a journey this has been from there to here, and I think beyond. So you're going to see the movie. There's going to be a Q&A afterwards. I can't speak to the veracity of every twist and turn because I wasn't in the weeds telling the story, but I can certainly speak to the impact of watching it. And it's sort of my kind of film, and I have a feeling it is for a lot of people. I don't watch it as a polemic. I didn't find myself. I was surprised in a way that I was not viewing it that way. I was viewing it as a sort of an origin story, sure, but a really, really interesting character study. And I love those kinds of those films. And they demand something of the creative team in order to actually maximize the potential of that kind of story. First you need a really strong script, a great take on the subject, and a great script. Well, Gabriel Sherman gave them that. Gabriel's here today. It's a relationship story. It's a character study. Well, Sebastian Stan, who by the way also got good news about A Different Man today. It's a remarkable and well-earned moment. And Jeremy Strong, you're just going to see the chemistry and the rest of the cast. It's just outstanding, and again, it speaks to that labor of love energy, but it also speaks to just tremendous artistic expertise at work, and you're going to get to enjoy that. It obviously demands a filmmaker who understands it on a very nuanced level, is passionate enough to make it in this labor of love kind of way, and really, really transport us. And Ali Abbasi really delivers, as you'll see. And of course, they're a team of producers. I probably don't have them all here, but especially this kind of film, it demands that level of passion and follow through and commitment and struggle. And just a few of the names: Dan Beckerman, Jacob Jarek, Ruth Tracy, Julianne Moore, and Louis Tisney. I know it's been years in the making, and and it shows. So I know I'm a cheerleader for a movie that has nothing to do with Imagine only, but I love movies, and I love good movies.
Producer Gabriel Sherman, Pretty Strong, and Sebastian Stan. party, and you both received Gold Globe nominations. Well, we were a little greedy and actually got 2 nominations, but we don't want to embarrass him. And you were actually up. You heard about it in real time.
Yeah. It was an interesting experience.
Did you realize? I mean, like did people start texting you when you get that first one, and then you're like, wait, there's a second?
I'm pretty sure my first text was definitely to him.
Yes. Jeremy, what were you doing when the nominations were announced?
You know, I try not to follow too closely when these things are happening. So I was happily asleep.
You were really, everyone always says they're asleep, but you actually really were asleep. What interested you in telling, this very specific story set in a very specific time period? Kind of an origin story.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're all the product of relationships, influences, mentors, teachers, parents. And, in my political journalism, I was really struck by things that people who knew Donald's very well in since the 80s said, which is basically a version of, he's sounds a lot like Roy when he does these rallies, or, he's repeating the lessons that Roy taught him. And it just came to me, you never know where your ideas are going to come from, but I just thought dramatically these 2 larger-than-life characters who these guys, brilliantly brought to life. I just thought there was a movie in this relationship. It says everything you need to know about Donald Trump. I had no interest in writing a cradle-to-grave biopic, but I thought this 13-year period from when Donald met Roy to Roy's death, we know everything there is to know about Donald from this one relationship, and so I thought, let's do a movie in that.
Well, for me, I had a meeting with Ali in 2019, and then I didn't speak to him until 2022, basically.
For this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I was really initially very curious as to why he thought I should be.
I got this arrogant, madman. You should play.
But it's interesting because there is, curiosity was definitely, I think, something that I've tried to kind of keep a hand on in the last couple of years of my life, but just towards things. And yeah, I had my judgments, like everybody. I had a lot of things that I thought I knew about the person, but reading his script, it felt really like I was reading a cross between Godfather Part 2 and Midnight Cowboy. It was if I just kind of crossed out the names, which I did the second time, it reminded me of these. So from an actor's perspective, it was sort of interesting, but from a person's perspective, I think, as someone who has constantly wrestled with this idea of the American dream and what does it mean, what is the cost, what does it do to somebody's humanity, empathy, and so on. I sort of thought it was interesting. I actually found weirdly things relatable about it that I didn't initially thought, and that freaked me out. And it just kind of kept going, and then the movie kept falling apart, and I was like, oh, at least I have an out. Like I don't have to. But I just couldn't walk away from it every time. I couldn't let sort of something that was scary or taboo or whatever, not be the reason I wasn't doing it. So.
I had seen Matt Tiernauer, documentary filmmaker, made a great documentary about Cohn, and also a woman named Ivy Mirapol made a documentary called Bully, Coward, Victim that I highly recommend. And she is a granddaughter of Ethel and Julius Rosenberg. And the film has actually, shockingly, given the context, a real amount of empathy and an attempt to understand this human being who's a real conundrum. I guess my feeling was I found him fascinating, terrifying, and Sarah Polley wrote a book a couple years ago, I think, called Run Towards the Danger, and this was one of those situations, which I think is always really what you have to do as an actor. So this certainly felt that, and the chance to do kind of character work, which is what I've always most loved doing and wanted to do.
Now there is, so much noise of things that we think we know about each of them. How much did you have to tune that out and sort of not play the ending or of who these people end up being, or how much did you embrace that?
I think it was a lot of tuning for me. Look, you have to get to a place where, at least for me, what I always remember is that amazing Philip Seymour Hoffman thing, that he said, where he was like, you gotta read something and see what are the feelings that, like, you relate to, or things that may work for you, and what are the feelings that you're having that may work against you, and you have to kind of be able to discern and differentiate and really investigate and honor the character no matter how ugly or they are. Whatever your own personal things you have to cast aside. But look, when you go down the rabbit hole and you do the research and you look back at that time, there's so much footage out there of both of them, but certainly Donald. There's so much footage out there that actually after the film came out and he, farted on it on his Truth Social, he actually decided to put an ad out before the election where he took all of the actual footages of him being a young man that we recreate in the movie in the ad, just to remind people that he really likes America. So I thought that's interesting where you got that idea. But,
You have to know that there's a part of him that's so excited Sebastian Stan is playing him. I look like that now.
I guess, what was it, human scum? I guess that's what you referred to us.
What to you?
I think so.
I'm so sorry, I should read the news more. But
We were in London with the film, and he posted about it and used that phrase, which was really, it's sort of funny, but it was really troubling because it's a phrase that Stalin used and Hitler used and Pol Pot used, and the historical context of that phrase is really deeply, deeply troubling. And your question, I think the only way to be in the arena with something like this is to approach it creatively. I think the rest of it, has no place in what we're doing. But of course, the movie now has this life where it intersects with the world in a very real-time way, where we're in this historical moment, and the film is sort of passed as prologue that really traces, I think, so much of how we got to where we are. But when we're doing it, I think we were just engaged in it creatively, and I'm approaching it the way I would approach playing Iago or something. Of course, using all of the historical resources and material that we both leaned on and tried to absorb as much as possible. But then you have to free it.
But it just also reminds me that, first draft of the script took about a year to write, but then, it was just a roller coaster after that. To get money, the money fell apart. Then January 6th happened, and no one wanted to touch Trump, and then the strikes and COVID, and but here we are.
Okay, so it was fairly recent though. It wasn't like this is an idea you've been rolling for 20 years.
No, this literally came to me one afternoon in the spring of 2017, a few months into Trump's presidency. It just popped in my head, and I remember I was writing like Roy, mentor, Donald, students, and then I was like, fuck, it's The Apprentice. Donald was the original Apprentice, and I wrote the words and circled in my notebook.
And look at that.
We planned all of it.
Secondly, I will admit being one of those people who is like, I don't know if I want to see a complex portrayal or have empathy for someone I don't like.
But why?
I know.
The question is why. It's like
Yeah.
we can dislike somebody, but they still get up in the morning. They still have hopes, dreams, fears, flaws. And as long as you're never letting the character off the hook, I feel that art is the safe place to explore those kinds of characters. We need to see all forms of the human condition, so that we can sort of know what we're dealing with. If we only have stories that dramatize from a protagonist point of view, only likable or relatable or happy characters, I think that sort of becomes a one-dimensional form of art.
Someone's filming that, right? Because I need to respond like that. Because I have not been able to articulate it myself.
I spent a lot of time thinking.
You're also a better writer than me.
When I was writing the script and telling friends, both in show business and outside of show business, what I was working on, I just heard over and over again, no one's going to watch a movie about Donald Trump. What else is there to say about him? And I found that kind of knee-jerk response revealing, but also, I think it's part of the challenge of our culture right now is that we all just rush to assumptions and kind of close ourselves off both intellectually and creatively for things that might seem dangerous or scary or that we don't agree with. And like, I think what either Sebastian or Jeremy said about like curiosity and running towards the danger, like I actually, in my writing, try to write about things that seem so alien to me, because if I can understand them and tell a story that explains them in a way that's relatable, that just is kind of pushing against this tribalism that our culture is falling into. And so like the argument sort of for this movie is that it exists as a movie, as a piece of art, and people can come to it and take what they want from it. And I think it's that sort of freedom that makes this kind of a radical movie in this current culture.
I mean,
Roy was a really, he had a kind of Peter Pan quality to him, a kind of, satanic Peter Pan. But, he lived with his mother until he was almost 50, and she prepared his bumblebee tuna lunch for him, and he had a kind of arrested development. And he lived in a consequenceless universe, which is part of what that's all about and what he passed on, I think, to Trump. But he had this other side of his life. He lived in a time where you couldn't be an openly gay person and practice law or be successful the way Roy had ambitions to be successful. So he had to kind of cauterize and stamp out and destroy this vital part of himself, which led to, well, I think a lot of destructive nihilistic stuff. But he had a kind of secret life in Provincetown, and he had he loved La Cage aux Folles, and he would play it on repeat. And so I hired a Broadway person to teach me a song from La Cage aux Folles, called I Am What I Am, which is an amazing song that we tried to, I kept being like, now can I sing? So there was a day where I did sing it to him. I was in a full body frog costume, and I sang him that song. I understand why he didn't use it. But it was, but in all seriousness, I'm not kidding. In all seriousness, because Ali has a kind of Lynchian sensibility, so I thought maybe, I mean, if you look at Sexy Beast, like, I don't know why it comes to mind, there's these sort of phantasmagoric elements that are amazing, but that song, the kind of just the anthem of that song, to me, gave me a lot in terms of understanding what I am, what I am.
I do believe that the producer who tried to stop the movie did see that version of you in the private suite.
Oh no!
I'm pretty sure that didn't help. But I mean, I think for me it was more, the last piece of humanity that I think Donald had, went down the tube with his father, with his brother's death. I mean, it's the one subject matter that I feel like I could track over the years that consistently seem to acknowledge that, in addiction. If you, even now, even the last sort of 10 years, and it's on YouTube, there's weirdly, you see him the only time ask questions back about addiction and I think it was at that point that sort of this pathos was kind of came to fruition, where I think, he learned how to develop, to gain a certain kind of strength by watching someone else be weak.
Yeah.
And the difference, in people are the ones that, like you go to a party or whatever, and somebody says, so and so's here, and they just went through a divorce, and like maybe don't mention that to them or whatever. And there's somebody who doesn't, and somebody who does. And Donald does, just because he's like, he wants to feel that moment. It's that self-validation, and that's, what is that?
Yeah. I'm so curious because this is set in such a specific period, in such a specific place. You can do all this research, but how much does it help you as actors to put on those costumes and that hair and makeup and like really lock everything into place?
It's everything. I mean, I think that was one of the things that was really helpful. I mean, we didn't really meet until after we were done, and one of the reasons for that was that we never saw each other. There was no time outside. No time was allowed even, like, because we were shooting it so crazy, and I would be there at 4 a.m. and then go back at 10 and go into bed and get up, and like, so we would only see each other on set.
I also think with something like this, when you're playing these people, at least the two of us, it was lucky in this way. Because Brian Cox might find it otherwise. But we were both immersive, and it served us, and it helped us, I think, just create a shared sense of belief in what we were doing, and it would have been, I think, difficult to sort of come in and out of it.
And the other thing to mention that was important for that, right, was that Ollie, who is amazing, and I really wish he was here, is like, I remember when you guys spoke, I remember from the get-go, I kept asking him, I said, what is the tone of this thing? I mean, how are you going to shoot this thing? And I didn't know that the way he was shooting it is like the camera was consistently always moving. Every take, there were times where we were not yelling cut, and we were continuing, and we were improvising going up in another building, and the camera was still following us, and it would get to the point where we wouldn't know what would end up in the movie. And there were times where he wanted us to improvise, and again, a lot of what you see is what was in the script, but part of the improvisation helped us find these moments that I think linked us. But the way for us to do that was to have a PhD in New York history in 1977 from who was the base, like the pitcher for the Mets to who was the mayor and who had been in the paper that week, and what we could be talking about maybe if he decided to throw out a direction, like when he's telling something about like the taxes in 1983, and you're like, there's things that you had to know, and that was the first time for me. I never had.
What's great about that, and I think what Sebastian and I both appreciate about the challenge, was that it's sort of like, it's not casual material, it's heightened and theatrical.
Yeah.
It's not contemporary. So there's an element of everything has to go through a filter, a pretty precise character that you have to spend, forever preparing and then trying to bury it. But then you're also, so you're kind of like holding on to a steep rock face to begin with. But then you're also being asked to like juggle while you're doing that. So there were a lot of times where we felt like, we might be,
We're gonna die.
yeah. So, we're just way out on the limb, but that was what also was exciting about it.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to see more Q&As like this, check out this one with Sean Baker and Mikey Madison for Honora. You might like it. See you next time.